Story 1: The Dyatlov Pass Mystery, 1959. In March 1922, a family living on an isolated farm in Germany began noticing strange things. The owner, Andreas Gruber, found unexplained footprints in the snow leading from a forest to the farm. What frightened him was that there were no footprints leading back out. Soon after, family members heard footsteps in the attic during the night. They searched but found nobody. A newspaper that nobody recognized appeared inside the house. A set of keys went missing. Despite these unsettling events, the family stayed on the farm. A few days later, neighbors noticed something unusual. The family had vanished from public view. When people finally checked the property, they discovered a horrifying scene: the family had been killed. The mystery became even stranger when investigators found evidence suggesting that someone may have remained on the farm for days after the murders, feeding the animals and using the kitchen. More than a century later, the case remains unsolved. No one knows for certain who committed the crime or why. This true case is often considered one of the creepiest unsolved mysteries in history because of the strange events that happened before the murders and the unanswered questions that remain today. Story 2: The Sodder Children Mystery, Real-Life Case. On Christmas Eve, 1945, the Sodder family was asleep in their home in Fayetteville. Just after midnight, a fire broke out. The parents, George and Jenny Sodder, and some of their children escaped. But 5 children were believed to be trapped inside the burning house. When firefighters finally searched the ruins, something strange happened. They could not find clear evidence that the 5 children had died in the fire. As the years passed, the mystery deepened. Witnesses claimed they had seen the missing children after the fire. One person reported seeing them in a passing car. Another claimed the children were being held elsewhere. Then, decades later, the family received a photograph of a young man who looked remarkably like one of the missing boys. Written on the back was a cryptic message suggesting he might still be alive. The Sodder parents never stopped searching. They placed a large billboard along the highway asking for information and spent years investigating leads. To this day, nobody knows for certain what happened to the 5 missing children. Did they perish in the fire, or were they taken before it spread? The case remains one of America's most famous unsolved mysteries, and one that still sends chills down people's spines. Story 3: The Lead Masks Case, Real-Life Mystery. In August 1966, 2 electronics technicians, Miguel Viana and Manuel Cruz, traveled from their hometown in Brazil for what appeared to be a routine trip. Days later, their bodies were discovered on a hill near Niterói. What made the case terrifying was what investigators found. Both men were lying side by side, dressed in suits and raincoats. Next to them were notebooks containing cryptic instructions, including a note that read, 1630 be at the specified place, 1830 ingest capsules. After effect, protect metals. Await signal. The men were also wearing homemade lead masks that covered their eyes. There were no signs of violence, no struggle, and no obvious explanation for what had happened. Witnesses later reported seeing strange lights in the sky around the time of the deaths. This led to rumors involving secret experiments, unidentified aerial phenomena, and mysterious groups. Despite years of investigation, authorities never determined exactly what the instructions meant, what the capsules contained, or why the men wore the lead masks. More than half a century later, the lead masks case remains one of the strangest unsolved mysteries in history. The creepiest part: the 2 men seemed to know exactly what they were going to do that day, but nobody knows why. Story 4: The Hinterkaifeck Murders, Real-Life Unsolved Mystery. In March 1922, the Gruber family lived on a remote farm called Hinterkaifeck in Germany. A few days before the tragedy, Andreas Gruber noticed something strange. Fresh footprints led from a nearby forest toward the farm. He searched for where they came from, but he could not find any footprints leading away. Then other unsettling things began to happen. The family heard footsteps in the attic late at night. A house key disappeared. A newspaper appeared on the property even though nobody in the family had bought it. Despite these warnings, life continued as normal. On March 31st, a new maid arrived to work at the farm. It was her first day. That night, one by one, members of the family were lured into the barn. The next few days were eerie. Neighbors noticed smoke still rising from the chimney. The farm animals were being fed. Someone appeared to be living there. When people finally entered the property, they discovered that the family and the maid had been killed. Investigators searched for clues, but the case became one of the most baffling mysteries in criminal history. The killer was never officially identified. The most chilling question remains: who was feeding the animals and staying at the farm after the murders, and why? More than 100 years later, the mystery remains unsolved, making it one of the creepiest real-life cases ever recorded. Story 5. The Mary Celeste Real-Life Maritime Mystery. In 1872, the merchant ship Mary Celeste set sail across the Atlantic Ocean carrying cargo and a crew led by Captain Benjamin Briggs. Everything seemed normal. Then, on December 4th, another ship spotted the Mary Celeste drifting alone near the Azores Islands. When sailors boarded the vessel, they expected to find a disaster. Instead, they found something far stranger. The ship was largely intact. Its cargo was still on board. Food and water supplies remained. Personal belongings were left behind. But the captain, his family, and the crew had vanished. There were no signs of a major battle, no evidence of piracy, and no clear indication of what had happened. The only missing item was the ship's lifeboat. Investigators considered many possibilities: rough weather, fear of an explosion from cargo fumes, navigation errors, or an emergency evacuation gone wrong. Yet none of the explanations fully solved the mystery. What made the case so unsettling was that the ship looked as if its occupants had left in a hurry, despite having no obvious reason to abandon a vessel that was still capable of sailing. More than 150 years later, the fate of the people aboard the Mary Celeste remains one of the most famous unsolved mysteries in maritime history. The chilling question: why would an experienced captain and crew abandon a seaworthy ship in the middle of the Atlantic and never be seen again? Wave Ghost. Thanks for watching. If you feel afraid, then please like the video and subscribe for more real horror story.